for the Onig, the
Oh,
Kumzis.
my pleasure.
Loved it.
My pleasure. Brandon's amazing. Eh? He was so good. All right, everyone. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov.
And we're gonna pick up on some Mishnayot. So we left off on Mishnah 4, which we finished. Al tifrosh minat tzibur. Don't separate yourself from the community. Don't, basically it seems the theme of chapter 2 is really, action, or Torah without action is perhaps incomplete. And so the advice from the sages is, action needs to accompany Torah, and I assume that they always mean action to do mitzvot, but to go out into the world to do mitzvot. I'm sure they also meant if you have to get a job, then great, But I think when they talk about maaseh, I think it's talking about mitzvot. But they certainly recognize that life isn't lived in a vacuum, and people go out into the world. So it seems to me that chapter 2 is really advice on entering into the world. And which leads us to Mishnah 5, which continues to say, Hu haya omer. So I think we're still talking about Hillel. Hillel continues to say, Ein bur yerei chet, the brutish ogre who doesn't fear sin, velo ha'ma'aretz chasid, and the simpleton won't become pious, velo habaishan lamed, someone who is embarrassed or inhibited won't become learned, velo hakapdan melamed, someone who kapdan is like, easy to anger, perhaps won't be such a good teacher. And someone who is too engaged in money, won't become smart. And in a place where there are no people, strive to be a person. So I think this fits right in line with sort of the theme that we've been learning. And again, it's to me, it's a warning, it's advice. Something that really stands out to me is the sentence "Velohai bashan lamed," that the inhibited person won't be able to learn. And I think we've all done that, where we were perhaps too shy to ask a question to the teacher or to someone, and then we moved on to the next subject, and we didn't in fact get what we wanted out of that lesson. I think that that it's such a powerful lesson to tell us that we have to engage, that it's up to us to learn. Right? You can't just sit back and expect people to teach you, but you have to ask, you have to be invested in that. And it's really the way Jews learn. Certainly the, yeshiva model is certainly the rabbi teaches the shiur, but then that chavruta style of learning where you're engaged with people and it's about challenging each other and asking and answering together, definitely is the way that we've taught and learned for a very long time. V'lo kaptan melamed, someone who is easy, who is not so patient, can't teach. I think it takes patience to teach, certainly. As a parent, certainly it takes a lot of patience to teach your children and to not be easy to anger. Yeah. Any thoughts about this one?
Very straightforward.
Yeah.
How's your patience with 4 small kids?
And you know, thank God, it's all good. Really, my biggest challenge is you know, not having them on screens all the time. So that's
Oh,
really, although my very good friend yesterday posted an article, and he's a doctor and his wife's a doctor, and so he posted an article. It's time to stop worrying about our kids' screen times during COVID. So I actually got, I actually took a lesson from this Mishnah yesterday when I was trying to find patience to deal with my son, who really is happy to sit and play, you know, PlayStation the whole day. I mean, this kid can play for 12 hours straight, and if I don't force him off, he won't eat, he won't go to the bathroom, he won't like join life, you know.
I wanted to tell you
Yeah,
just that you have to be careful with that because screen time for children is very addictive.
for sure.
It's like being on heroin.
I know, I see it, and
So is COVID or no COVID, we have to control that.
right. Well, it's really only on
Not just
Sundays.
with little kids, I have to tell you.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, Sundays is really the day that we sort of allow it. You know, thank God he's in school during the week, so it's not such an issue during the week. But I said, why don't we create a YouTube channel together, and we could sort of talk about your games and stuff, you know? So I was like really trying to find a way to take what he loves, something that I'm really not invested in at all, but turn it into this like educational experience for him. So he got all excited, and now he's asking me about the YouTube channel. So I think we're actually going to start a YouTube channel that investigates his games, you know. And of course, the final sentence here, super famous line, "Uvmakom she'en anashim yishtadel liot ish." You know, I think it's, to me, it rings to be a social justice issue, that, you know, that don't be afraid, don't be a brute, don't be an amaretz, don't be timid, don't be easy in anger, because when it's time to stand up and say what you think, say what you believe, and perhaps influence others, then it's time to be a person and time to steer the others. That's kind of what this says to me.
Adam, if I may, I taught all my grandchildren how to play chess.
Yeah.
And so yesterday I played four kids, four of my grandchildren. We played chess online.
That's beautiful.
So what they do, they were on the screen, but I was talking to them the whole time.
Right. So chess.
Sadie,
We actually,
sorry, go.
okay, no. We actually taught our two oldest chess this year, and that's in the Shabbat afternoon, you know, rotation, where we go from Monopoly to chess, to books, because we don't allow screens on Shabbat, so that's in the rotation. Shabbat.
So anyway,
I haven't done checkers yet.
Yeah. Oh, it's tough with my kids in Houston. Okay,
Right.
but it's amazing. I played all four of my grandchildren. I didn't win one game yesterday.
That's great.
It's terrible. Anyway.
Okay.
Oh, can I just say something about the movie Saturday Night? If anybody watched it, the Frisco Kid.
Yeah.
Did you catch the part in there where Gene Wilder's character, the rabbi, he says, the Talmud says, make yourself a teacher?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, saw that. Yes.
Yeah. That is a fantastic movie. He's so good. First of all, his Yiddish is great. You know, I love when things are actually authentic. So when he's davening before Shabbos or on Shabbos, he's actually saying a prayer from Shabbos. The scene, which you assume is the day before, on Thursday, he ends off the davening with the Shir Shal Yom for Thursday. It's like there's these little subtleties in that movie that are bang on, and it's obvious that he, and perhaps the director, producers, or whatever, like they knew Yiddishkeit, you know, like it's just great. Really, it's great. Okay, so you know, Mishnah 6 here kind of stands out a little bit. Maybe the challenge is for us to see sort of how it fits in. So Hillel apparently once saw, you know, Gulgolat the Chach Tzafal Pnei Hamayim. There was a skull floating in the water. Amagla, and he says to it, and he reverts back to the Aramaic, Al dateft atfuch v'sof mitifayich itufun. Because you drowned someone, you were drowned, and in the end, they that drowned you will, like he who drowned you will be drowned. You know, sort of like ayin tachat ayin, shen tachat shen, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, kind of lesson here. Is it what goes around comes around? Is that you know, it seems sort of not so in line with what we've been learning. So I open it up to, I mean, really, this is kind of a hard one to understand what the lesson is.
I always had a tough time with this one because it never seemed to fit with just what goes on before.
Right.
The only thing I can think of is it's poetic justice. If you're good to somebody, they'll be good to you. If you're not good to somebody or whatever, you're going to get it in the end. So that's the only thing I could ever get.
But you know, I think we've learned that you know, that we I mean, yes, we learned that you should weigh things on account of the schar, on, you know, but we shouldn't be mindful just of the schar because you don't really know what the reward is, you know. So I would think do good because it's a good thing to do, right?
But if you do bad, you're going to get drowned.
Right. Do you think he knew the person? Do you think he knew the person and that maybe the person actually, like, do you think that this was perhaps literal, that the person actually drowned someone and then he was drowned? And
but it only says he once saw a skull floating. So then he said to himself, well, because somebody else drowned him, that other person is going to get poetic justice. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to fit. I always had a hard time with this one.
I think that he didn't once see. It means literally even he saw the skull, one skull that was floating. Afhu means even him.
Right.
So it must be somebody that everybody knew was drowned because he was drowning other people.
Mm-hmm. So then why end it by saying? So then why? So if the person that drowned other people, then it was sort of
payback.
It was payback. Why would he say, in the end, those that drowned you will also be drowned? Because it's just that cycle. Because
it could have been, I'm thinking, revenge, you know? Or one family, a person drowned somebody because, let's say he raped her and he was afraid she'll tell. So he drowned her. Her brothers came to drown him. His brothers will come to drown them.
Right.
So it's a never-ending cycle.
So here's a quote that I have here from Abba Bernal, okay, in his book, and he says here, finally on the subject of poetic justice, because you drowned others, others have drowned you. Abba Bernal has the following to say: one may not argue that if A drowned B, it becomes apparent that B was the murderer and deserved the penalty of capital punishments which A administered. A was simply God's messenger in carrying out his decree. If that be the case, why should A be threatened with retaliation by drowning? The answer is this. The motivation of A in performing unknowingly God's will was not part of his mission. A's crime was self-motivated. He drowned B simply because he decided to, and in that case, retribution is inevitable. That's the only comment. So did he drown him because it was God's will, or did he drown him because it was his own will? And if it was his own will, then he's going to get drowned.
Well, that's not what I heard. I heard that even if he thought it was God's will, the fact that he did it on his own means that it was not the right thing to do, right? Even if the courts put someone to death, it's not the act of one person, or else we would, breed psychos just like, who would just think that they were taking God's will into their own hands. Like we had and have a very strict court system where even when they used to put people to death for things like Mechalel Shabbat and other things like that, it was done in a certain way, that you needed witnesses, you needed certain types of witnesses. They and there's actually a very famous Gemara that says that the Sanhedrin that would put one person to death in something like 75 years was considered a very bloody Sanhedrin. Like, it's not that this would happen all the time. It seemed to be a very rare occurrence that they would actually execute someone. So it's, even if you think you're doing God's will, v'sof mitifayach yitufun. In the end, their fate will be your fate as well.
But who knows if God's will was not, it wasn't his mission to do it.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
So.
But in the Torah, clearly it says that whoever is doing bad, the people should stone him. The people of the community should stone him. So they are allowed to kill somebody because they're doing bad.
But only once it's gone through the proper, channels. It's not just...
when the judge decides.
Right.
Or the rabbi.
It's not just Shimon and Levi going into Shechem with swords and, carving everybody up.
Yeah.
Anyways. Number 7. Hu haya omer. So we're still on Hillel. Marbe basar, marbe rima. This is an interesting one. The more meat, the more worms. Marbe nechasim, marbe de'aga. The more stuff, the more worry. Marbe nashim, marbe kshafim. The more women, the more what I assume they're saying black magic. Marbe shfachot, marbe zima. The more female, I guess
servants, slaves.
Yeah, the more
maid servants.
The more how does Safari translate? Lewdness. Perfect. Marbe avadim, marbe gazel. The more slaves. So now I think we're talking about men slaves. Marbe gazel. The more stealing.
Theft.
Marbe Torah. Oh, so here's now the opposite of the balance. Marbe Torah, marbe chayim. The more Torah, the more life. Marbe Shiva, marbe Chochma. The more learning, the more wisdom. Marbe Tzah, marbe Tvuna. The more advice, the more understanding.
Wisdom, yeah.
Marbe Tzedakah, marbe Shalom. The more charity, the more peace. Kana shem tov, kana le'atzmo. If you bought a good name, you bought it for yourself. Kana lo divrei Torah, kana lo chayei olam haba. But if you've acquired divrei Torah, the words of Torah, you have acquired your life in the world to come.
Do we really believe in reincarnation?
Judaism 100% believes in reincarnation. We don't pretend to understand what it means and how it's going to happen and all that. And there's actually very little. We certainly don't dwell on it, but we say mechayei metim three times a day. You know,
that's not chayei olam haba. The mechayei metim is return the life to the dead people who are here.
Right, but you asked about reincarnation.
Yeah.
You know, chayei olam haba, whatever olam haba is, it helps to acquire divrei Torah, apparently, according to this Mishnah. You know, I mean,
don't go there without the Torah.
Yeah, listen, it can't hurt. Which actually leads me back to this scene from the movie Saturday Night when he gets sick from hanging out with the Indians and the chief, and he gets drunk and whatever, and then he wakes up with the monks, and he opens his eyes and he sees the cross and he hears about us. He's like, "Am I? Is this?" And he gets all worried that was hilarious. So again, don't, with the understanding that people have to go out into the world and interact with the world, this is perhaps advice, don't be too caught up on, marbe basar. To me, it's meat. It's a sign of like gluttony. Exactly right. So, don't be too focused on, what we call gashmiut, really things that are physicality, possessions, food, women, slaves, these, the more you have of this stuff, the possibility of more headaches and more, problems. But of course, ein sof la Torah. There is no such thing as too much Torah, too much learning. The more advice you give, the more understanding you'll have. Very interesting line here. Marbet staka, marbet shalom. Very interesting relation there. The more charity, the more peace. Shalom.
I think it's because when you give charity, people stop fighting because they don't have to worry about the everyday things.
Oh, very nice.
And that makes more peace.
Right.
And that, for instance, if you help Talmidim to learn, they don't fight anymore and they have more peace.
Right.
Like if they don't have to worry about the wife and the children who are starving, and let's do it fast, and it adds also marbeh Torah.
Right. I like also looking at the word shalom as shalem, that it's things are whole, right? And if we often say things like tikkun olam, staka needs to repair the world, and it literally repairs things and makes them whole. So shalom is also shlemut, Kana shem tov, kana le'atzmo. And if you've so this I don't necessarily agree with 100%. I think that there's a lot of merit to having a good name. And I could probably think of other mishnahs where it's important, where someone's reputation is very important. But it's done through good action, obviously. So I'm not quite sure what the Mishnah is trying to tell us here. Kana shem tov, kana le'atzmo, that perhaps your name is only for yourself, right? So it's not. I mean, to me, it doesn't say that you shouldn't do it, but you have to realize that your reputation is for you. But when you acquire Divrei Torah, you acquire Chayei Olam Haba.
Maybe it has to do with acquiring a good name for yourself through your own actions by doing good things. It's not something that you can buy for yourself or that you can get from somebody else.
Oh, nice.
I think also that Kana Shem Tov is when you get a good name or a good reputation, it's only for you. But when you buy Torah things, it means you're going to sit with people and learn, and you're going to add to the community, and that will give you like better Chayei Olam Haba, because you do good for others, for community.
But to me, Chayei Olam Haba is also for you. Right? It's not saying that you'll get
That's
Olam
true.
Haba
That's true.
for the community. It's kana lo Chayei Olam Haba.
Yeah.
It seems like the whole idea here is to focus more on not acquiring more riches for yourself, like maybe not to spend your extra time to try and get richer or get more stuff, but to use that time to study with other people, to study more Torah, to do more good things. So in that way, you're kind of balancing your life, what you're spending time doing. And I think it also ties in with getting a good reputation for yourself, because if you're doing these things, that will naturally come about. And by also doing these things, you're kind of securing your place in the world to come, because you have studied Torah and you have done all these good things.
Beautiful.
This reminds me of what my mother used to say. As I get older, I keep quoting my parents. It's incredible. Anyway, my mother used to say, too much of anything is no good. A little bit of everything is fine. So if I want, I can have a smoked meat sandwich, but not every day. So this is what this teaches me. And I really think also, I can't see myself studying so much Torah. A little bit I can absorb, I can enjoy. But if I have to do too much of it, I think it's just going to make me crazy. A little bit of everything is very good for you.
Oh, well, the Mishnah is telling you that that the more Torah you study, the more life.
I think
okay.
It talks about priorities, like what's important
right.
to you. So if it's important to acquire things as opposed to knowledge, because the things you have responsibility to the things as opposed to yourself, right? So yeah, I think it speaks about priorities and what Tammy was saying, and Elliot, yeah, and Gail, totally.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that each one correlates to the, like, do you think Basar and Rima are connected to Torah and Chaim, and Nechasim and De'aga are connected to Yeshiva and Chokhmah? Do you think that they chose these with intention? Basar and Rima, that's worms and flesh is death, right? Like worms come, they eat So what's the true balance of that Torah and Chaim? Nechasim and De'aga, possessions and worry. What's the opposite? Would be Yeshiva. Don't go out and buy stuff. Go out and sit with the rabbis, sit with your chavrutas, and instead of your mind being occupied with worry, your mind will be occupied with chokhmah. I'm just seeing this now, that perhaps it's really tit for tat. Eitzah and tfuna balances out nashim and magic. I don't know.
But remember who wrote these. These are the rabbis that wrote. So
True.
they got to say, you got to keep coming back to us.
Right.
Come back to us, and we'll keep learning, and we'll have a job forever.
And don't forget to put some shekels in the pushka.
Amen.
All right.
All right. It's 9:30.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. It was an enjoy. At least we all laughed.
That's it. For
Okay.
sure. It's important.
We seem to enjoy it.
Definitely
Yes.
important.
Have a great week. Shavua Tov, everybody.
Shavua Tov. Good to be together.
Yeah.
Amen.
Have a
Yeah.
wonderful day.